Can I ask you, where do you get your inner strength from? Are you struggling being strong enough for your family and your friends? Stick around for the next few minutes to discover the irony of strength, that we are stronger when we are weaker. You're listening to Journey Podcast. This podcast can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more platforms by searching Journey Podcast by Samson Bush. Each episode is divided into 3 main areas, so without further ado, let's begin with the first one. Hearing God speak. You've been trying to be strong. How's that working for you? You have tried to draw strength from your own efforts, but you're even more tired than before. You try to be stronger for others, and I admire that. But do you really think you have enough strength for everyone? The world might make you think you do, but if you search your heart, how do you really feel? You know well that you can do all things through Christ, but you left out the part where He strengthens you. You remember well when I said, "To fear not, for I am with you. Not to dismay, for I am your God." But you forgot the part where I said that I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. I want to renew your strength, but I also want to be your strength. I want you to be strong, but I want you to be strong in me. I've commanded you to be strong and brave. Don't ever be afraid or discouraged. I am the Lord your God, and I will be there to help you wherever you go. I will not disappoint you. I will not fail you. I give strength to the weary, and to the person who has no might, I increase power. Your flesh and heart may fail, but my strength is eternal. My grace is sufficient for you. My loving kindness and my mercy are more than enough, always available regardless of the situation. For my power is being perfected and is completed and shows itself most effectively in your weakness. Therefore, boast with gladness in your weakness, so that the power of Christ may completely enfold you and may dwell in you. In time of weakness, with insults, with distress, with persecutions, and with difficulties, in those moments of weakness, and when your human strength fails, that is when you will be strong. Which means to be truly able, truly powerful, truly drawing from my strength. Part 2, Reflection. In the Old Testament, we find many ways the strength of God is conveyed. Proverbs 18:10 says, "The name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous man runs into it and is safe." Towers were built freestanding or along the walls of cities for defense, to allow watchmen to see hostile forces from a distance, and to shoot arrows and other weapons from a high vantage point. Often the outside of a tower would be decorated with the shields of the army, so that approaching enemies could see the size of the defense while they were still far off. A tower was important and necessary to protect the city from invaders. Another example where God Himself is likened to a tower is in Psalm 61 verse 3 that says, "For you have been my refuge, my strong tower against the foe." And also towers were used to guard crops from the thieves as well. But before we go into that, let's just mention that when these passages were written, Israel was already established as a nation, and it had been quite some time since they had left Egypt. However, during the time that they were entering into the Promised Land, they were told by Moses in Deuteronomy 11 verses 10 to 12, "The land you are entering to take over is not like the land of Egypt, from which you have come, where you have planted your seed and irrigated it by foot, as in a vegetable garden. But the land you are crossing the Jordan to take possession of is a land of mountain and valleys that drinks rain from heaven. It is a land the Lord your God cares for. The eyes of the Lord your God are continually on it from the beginning of the year to its end." Now, it is important to understand that something that made a nation a superpower was to have water in abundance. Yet, these people were led into a land God cared for, but it was a land with very little water. Egypt, because of the Nile River, had water that was about 30,000 times more abundant than the yearly rainfall in Canaan. That's a huge difference. But God had a different plan in mind. The difference here is that in Egypt, they irrigated their crops by hand-watering labor, but in the Promised Land, their crops were watered by the rain. Egypt and Canaan, therefore, were a contrast of security of human effort compared to dependence on God. God chose a land where His people could be dependent on Him. So how about you? Are you trying to draw strength from your own efforts? Do you have enough strength? God wants you today to draw your strength from Him, because it is only in our weakness when we are strong. Not because of you, not because of me, but because of Him. God wants you to depend on Him. Now let's take the following minutes in silence to make our response to God. Ask God not only to give you strength, but for you to rely on His. This has been Journey Podcast. If you like this episode, feel free to share with someone who you think might need to hear it. And remember that you can listen to this podcast for absolutely free on Spotify, Apple Podcast, on YouTube, and any other platform. So thanks for joining, and remember to always depend on Him.